Hello everybody, Abel here, and today we're here with Dr. Mike Koslow, who is running for Congress in the 26th Congressional District of California. So
Good morning.
Nice to be with you, Dr. Koslow.
My pleasure. Good to be here this morning, Abel. Thank you for having me.
So, what made you want to run for Congress?
Well, it was a couple of decisions. I think what happened is like all of us, we're sitting there watching TV, or we hear different politicians talking about different issues, and I just really saw that it really came down to recognizing that had a void of leadership. And being as fortunate as I was to have the mentorship that I had over the years from others before me that were able to go ahead and provide me with the sound basis of good leadership skill sets, managerial skill sets, and the passion to be able to be effective in a leadership environment that benefits the organization and other people. One of the mantras that I used to live by was people first and mission always. And it really came down to trying to get the job done and doing it in a way that benefited others. And so when I saw that we had that void right now in leadership in the United States government and in local government, I had to make a conscious decision that even after retiring from two different professions in my background and in the private sector as well, and opening up my own business, sometimes you've got to make a conscious decision when you have the competency and capability to get something done, step up and be that person to be able to do it on behalf of the public. And that's why I did that.
Wow, that's amazing. So, what type of leadership skills do you have, like running a business? You mentioned that you run a business. Could you talk more about business leadership skills?
Certainly. Well, a couple of things. I had the government business experience and government managerial and leadership experience, having gone through the military for almost 33 years in totality, starting out at the lowest level possible as an E-1, working on a variety of different military aircraft, F-4s, B-52 bombers, and then attaining the level after about 30 years, and running the California Air National Guard as the command chief for the California Air National Guard, where I had responsibility over 4,700 personnel in 9 different mission areas throughout the state of California, and then sat on the Field Advisory Council back in Washington, which reported to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, setting policy for over 104,000 men and women throughout the world that were part of the National Guard and the Air National Guard. Concurrently, also was for 31 years a federal agent. Started out with the Air Force OSI, and then transitioned to the Department of Defense Inspector General, and then went and worked with the FBI as a detailee for 8 years, providing them with knowledge and background and expertise in government contract fraud issues and fraud, waste, and abuse issues. So a lot of experience in that, and then transitioned over to the private sector, where I gained experience in the private sector in management skill sets and dealing with a whole different dynamic of people. Had a lot of nurses in the medical industry that worked for me. I worked for Anthem Incorporated, provided insurance to different beneficiaries, Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, to different people out there that were in need of medical care and medical health. Then I opened up my own business, and that's where I transitioned to. After being with Anthem for about 5-6 years, I decided I was going to go ahead and become a consultant to different people out there that were able to mostly law firms, from a defense perspective, and going up against the United States government, the U.S. attorney's offices, and even helping them in some cases to be able to go ahead and negotiate settlements on behalf of our clients, and very effectively in a myriad of different areas, from healthcare to contract fraud, and different issues that we felt that the United States government was being overly zealous in its attempt to be able to go ahead and prosecute different clients. So that's where I got the experience from over all those years, and it was very good. It was progressive. Made some mistakes along the way, but learned from those.
Yeah, I could agree with that. We all make mistakes and we all learn from them, and it's a very important lesson for all of us to learn from them. Do you sit in any business organization councils or anything such as that?
I do. Good question. I actually, over the years, I've joined different organizations that are support licensed investigators, which I am. I'm a private licensed investigator in the state of California, and belong to California organizations aligned with that, as well as national organizations that are aligned with that profession as well. And most importantly, I sit on the National Small Business Association Leadership Council back in Washington, advocating for different small businesses nationwide. Small businesses comprise over 90% of most of the business activity in the United States. So I advocate for their different issues on taxation issues, medical health issues, and issues as it relates to allowing them to be able to thrive even on government contracts and what we call the small business innovative research type of contracts, more conceptual design phases that enables the United States government and the different contractors to excel in new technologies and competencies and capabilities worldwide.
So, how would you help those businesses in your district? What is important for you to see the small businesses?
Good question again. What it comes down to is you've got to get out there and you have to research and understand what is important to those different businesses in the different sectors that they work in, whether it's in machinery, whether it's in steel building, whether it's in oil and gas, whether it's in technology, AI, all these areas. You have to become a jack of all trades, so to speak, and go out and research what these particular markets are interested in, what's important to them, what are some of the impediments to their being able to flourish. We have a lot of issues going on with the tariffs right now, and there's concerns in business right now because of the supply chain issues. A lot of products coming in from China, from Indonesia, from Malaysia, India. So you have to get out there and talk to the different businesses in the district to be able to go ahead and on a one-on-one know what's important to them and help them as a facilitator in some way, hopefully in Congress, to be able to go ahead and get on the right committees and subcommittees to be able to provide a definitive insight to the committee's decisions as to how to go ahead and set policy and make law that benefits businesses nationwide and more specifically in District 26 in our backyard.
Definitely, I could agree with you because I've seen a lot of businesses in this district close throughout the years. I've seen personally my hometown of Oxnard. We've used to have so many businesses here striving, and now is lacking a lot of businesses and a lot of empty stores. And I think it hurts not just the residents who like to shop there, but the people who own the businesses, because they don't have their business no more and everything's expensive. Mm-hmm. And speaking of expensive, how would you work with lowering prices? Because I know prices here in California are really high, and just how would you plan to lower the prices?
Well, that's a complex issue, a very, very complex issue. It depends on the market area that you're looking at, but overall, you know, the average household it's costing them anywhere from between $4,000 to as much as $10,000 more a year, just because of the escalating prices that are being placed upon the different commodities that we have. Eggs, obviously. You know, we had the bird flu, and we had different issues that affect those particular commodities. The one thing that we don't do in Congress, from my perspective, from what I've seen and folks that I've talked to, is that they don't plan ahead sufficiently enough. They don't look at the consequences to some of the decisions that are made. What I'd be doing is sitting on the right committees and the subcommittees and finding out more and more and having more discussions with those individuals and corporations and companies that are directly impacted and or influence the ability for us to bring prices down. Gas. As far as what are the impediments to being able to go ahead and provide lower gas prices? Well, first and foremost, we have to be able to allow them to go ahead and drill, be able to go ahead and reduce the restrictions on some of the permitting requirements, and there lies the problem on that particular commodity, is that we have a lot of permitting on home prices. That's a big issue. We don't have expansion of the boundaries in, let's say, in Ventura County. CERT and SOAR. Those are different organizations or different initiatives that are prohibitive in many cases. So we need to take a look at what kinds of things are going to reduce the prices to the overall American public, and specifically those in District 26. We can go down each of the respective commodities. Supply chains. Are we looking for alternate supply chains? If we're going to put tariffs on different types of supplies coming in from China, from Mexico, from Canada, do we have alternate solutions? And are we working with the Department of Commerce and our local organizations, the economic development departments, for jobs, to be able to get those capabilities so that way we can make recommendations? We're going to go ahead and institute a new policy. But here's what you do in the interim, Mr. and Mrs. Business of America, to be able to go ahead and look for other alternatives to being able to go ahead and receive your supplies that are not so cost impacted.
And as we're on the topic of business and just helping the people who live in that area, how would you plan to promote economic growth in the United States and specifically your district?
Well, I think President Trump has done an outstanding job as far as in promoting what's the American First agenda. That first and foremost is I think all Congress and Senate have to jump on board and be able to provide him with the mechanisms and the recommendations and the legislation necessary to be able to further those initiatives. Sometimes you have to take a step back to go too forward, we always used to say. And yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit in the initial phases because it's disruptive. But I think by saving billions of dollars, if not $1 trillion of the American taxpayers' money, is reducing taxes. The burden of taxes on America have just gone up astronomically. So we got to bring that down so that way you can keep more money in your pocket. And that's what reducing taxes does, is it allows you to have more money to spend on other commodities and make a better home life for your family and for those people around you. Create more jobs. So that's some of the things that I would be looking at, is reduction of taxes overall, and restriction and reduction on some of the permitting and the regulations that are impeding us being able to go forward as businesses and in different industries throughout the United States.
Yeah, I agree. It's really hard for a mom and pop restaurant or just a regular, let's say, thrift store or anything just to get around here, especially here in California. Mm-hmm. It's really hard for them because there's a lot of permitting. You got to go through state, you got to go through United States government, and mm-hmm. it just struggles to get everything situated for them. And I feel honestly really bad for them because they have to go through that stress. On top of that, the stress of opening their new restaurant or store, it really hurts them.
Agreed.
And if you look at a lot of businesses that have been here or that are here right now, locally owned, you'll see that they've been here probably before these issues have started. Mm-hmm. And anytime I see a new business here, I'm not trying to be me, but they're usually bound to fail. And it's not their fault. It's the state's fault for the failed leadership it's had. We've had so much opportunities to get out of this situation, but we always fail to vote for the right people and vote for the right issues. It's like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people do it for themselves, not for the people. And I truly believe that you're one of those people who are there to help the people. And I've seen a lot of other stuff that's happened. And I don't want to talk bad about some people, but I've seen it. And we need the right leaders. And what would you plan to accomplish if you were elected to the United States Congress?
My first and foremost goal would be just to be able to collaborate, not only with Republicans, but across party lines. I mean, that's really important. You've got to have a degree of collaboration in anything that you try to accomplish in life, because you're going to have different organizations, individuals with different mindsets, and you've got to start with a degree of commonality. What do you agree on? And then expand from there, and not be overly confrontational and contentious. And that's what we see in Congress right now. It's either my way or the highway kind of a mentality. And a lot of emotionalism is involved in that. And people are passionate about their beliefs, but you have to address things on a rational, common sense level. That means that we're trying to get something done. And the way we get there may be different, but we both agree we need to get there. We need to be able to make this country great again and to do those things that make us predominant and preeminent as it relates to on the world stage, both from a military force perspective, as far as a domestic product perspective, We need to be preeminent on everything we do and provide that global leadership that this country has the capability and has projected in the past. So what I would do in getting into Congress is first get that degree of collaboration, sit on the right committees and the subcommittees that are important to my district. House Armed Services Committee, the Infrastructure and Energy Committees, and the Veterans Committee. Also, as a former veteran, 33 years myself, I know what the issues are that are affecting our veterans. I know the collaborations and capabilities and the transitional issues that they have transitioning from military service over to the public service or into the public itself. All those issues, to sit on the right committees to be able to go ahead and effectively make change and effectuate change that benefits the different people within the district as well as the veterans.
So that's an amazing answer. I mean, we do need people who could collaborate with both sides of the aisle, and it's very important for us as a state to have a representative who's willing to work with both sides. Because if you look at it, usually it's one-sided, and whether they agree or not, they won't vote for them, since it's, hey, you're my party, I vote for you. You're not my party, I don't vote for you. And it's horrible the way that stuff is ran like that, and it's embarrassing for us as a nation to have that kind of divide for stuff that really affects the American people.
Well, if I wanted to be an actor, I would have went in a different direction. And, you know, a lot of politicians like to be what I call performative politicians. You know, their chance in the limelight for their 30-second spot or their 60-second spot with their canned answers, that they feel that they're going to go ahead and get an emotional response from the public or their base. No, you know, it's like there's a time and place and importance to be able to go ahead and talk about different issues that are important to people and to the public. But behind the scenes, you got to roll up your sleeves and get the job done. And that's really what comes down, and that's through a collaborative process.
How would you ensure that your decisions represent your district, and why?
How my decisions, again, I would have to go out and talk to the constituents, get out there. A couple of folks that I know that are mayors and or supervisors go out and sit in the malls and actually have an opportunity to get to know them and listen to what the public has to say. You've got to make time. Everybody's busy, but you represent people. And in my case, about 700,000, almost 1 million people in District 26. Regardless of party affiliation. And you've got to listen to them and hear what their concerns are. And if you're in a position to take care of them and address that, and it's incumbent upon you as their representative to stand up, speak out, and have their voice and your voice as a conduit to be able to make change and effective change when it calls for it.
And how would people be able to reach you? What is a good way? Like, do you have social media, or is there somebody they could contact on your behalf?
I do, www.votemichaelkoslow.com. And I also am on all the different social media platforms as well. But I strongly encourage people to reach out. If they do have questions on an issue, I'll be happy to see what I can do to address it.
All right, and as for that, I'll also put Dr. Mike Koslow's social media and his website on this video's link. And whether you're watching it on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok, you should be able to find his stuff. I'll have it all posted for you. So what are your stances on climate change? Because I know climate change is a big one, especially amongst Republicans. So what is your stances on climate change?
I think climate change is a viable and is a reality. I think it certainly for the millions of years that man in some form has been on this planet. I think that we have to recognize that there are global climate shifts. As to whether or not how much man is inducing that and creating that, that's the question. And I believe in scientific evidence to be able to go ahead and support that or refute it. But really what it comes down to is I think that the green energy initiatives were in some cases, if not many cases, taken advantage of. And yeah, I have that at home too sometimes.
Yeah, I just saw the kid fall.
But it comes down to we have to make good, smart decisions going forward as to what we actually use the taxpayers' money for as far as in determining where we allocate our efforts to be able to combat climate change in cases where we need to. But again, we need to do it in the right way, in a smart way that doesn't unnecessarily burden the United States taxpayer and use that money, when in fact we should be diverting and should be using that money for other beneficial programs. And green energy, great concept, great idea, but sometimes it's haphazard, and they don't think of the consequences. Case in point, as far as in lithium, we have batteries, and it's almost as bad as trying to find a place to go ahead and store all of that when it's depleted, almost like radioactive waste. As far as, because it can be just as bad. We have to put it someplace, and where do we put that material? So my attitude is that this country runs on oil and gas. We have a great capability to be able to go ahead and produce it. We can become energy dominant, not independent, but dominant again, and put us back on the world stage and make people feel better. Almost every product that is produced in this world has some type of a petroleum base to it in most cases. We need to get back to that, and that's part of the basis to be able to go ahead and make America great again.
That's a great answer. So how do you feel about how everything's been for the last 4 years going on right now? Because I know we have new leadership and a new president, of course. We got new people elected, and how do you feel about that right now? How's everything going in your opinion?
Well, in layman's terms, I feel jazzed. I feel good about it, damn good about it, because of the fact that we're in a position right now that we haven't been in a long time. I'll tell you what, one of the things that I was concerned about, we were at the precipice of watching this country go down the tubes, hell in a handbasket, where we were about to see the United States of America and the fall of the United States of America. President Trump and his cabinet are working diligently right now at lightning speed, at warp speed, to be able to go ahead and make those substantive changes that are going to bring back this country to the level of greatness that we once had and enjoyed. So I really feel good about it. I think that his cabinet is phenomenal. We're going to make some minor errors on the way and disruptions, but I see that they're correcting those as they identify them, and that they're instituting policies and programs that are going to benefit this country in so many different ways, that our progeny and the children of the future once again have an opportunity to thrive in this great nation.
I agree with you, and with minor errors, as a congressman, if you get elected, would you take responsibility for minor errors if it was on your behalf? And would you take responsibility for anything that happens negative or positive during your time in Congress?
When you get to the top, they used to say it's lonely at the top when you make it into an organizational structure that you're in charge. And ultimately, the buck stops with you, as many times we've heard that over and over again. Yes, the buck stops with me. I make the decisions, I make the recommendations, and I'm transparent. I let people know what I'm thinking, why I'm thinking, and if I deviate in my thinking process, I will let people know why. And yes, I will be fully accountable. That's a word that I really praise, is that I am accountable for my actions, and I will take responsibility. But at the same time, hopefully that you're talking to the right people and you're making informed decisions versus just shooting from the proverbial hip.
I agree with you. It's important, especially for in a leadership position such as Congress. Usually people blame other people for their mistakes, and I don't think that is right, because the people elected them to represent them, and they just represent themselves. Yes. And they blame their people for their mistakes, which is very unfortunate and very unprofessional. So we've talked about this briefly, but I want to hear your full concept of this. What is your position on the national debt and the flex spending? What would you do to take and to address them?
Well, I think DOGE right now is doing a lot of that. As a former fraud, waste, and abuse investigator for 3 different organizations, I think it's important to make sure that there's accountabilities in every organizational activity that the United States government is involved in. We're using taxpayer monies to pay for all of that. So if we're not good stewards fiscally as it relates to how we're going to spend that money, then shame on us. And more so, it can be criminal in nature in some cases. I've been involved in the investigation and subsequent prosecution of a lot of organizations that are motivated by monetary gain through illegal means or inappropriate or unethical means. We need to hold those people accountable. And I think that the way from the debt perspective is to make sure that we're not going to have perfection, but we need to be able to make sure that efficiencies and effectiveness in almost every government organization and process are being done in the most efficient way as good stewards fiscally of the American taxpayers' dollars.
And I agree with you, because we do have a lot of reckless spending on stuff that doesn't even help us as a country. I mean, I support the United States helping other countries, but I think there should be a limit. I mean, take a look at Ukraine. We gave them so much money, and our people are struggling here at home. And I'm glad that we stopped. We cut it. We wanted the war to be over. We're tired of giving them money. We're tired of giving them weapons, because all we're doing is hurting ourselves in the process. And a lot of people don't like to talk about that, but I'm vocally open about it. I think it's a terrible idea to keep this war going on. Meanwhile, we're trying to have peace deals with it.
There's a national security component, having worked in that arena in my life, is that you recognize there's a bigger picture, and there's bigger initiatives and a national strategy that coincides with being able to safeguard the American way of life, if you will, not only here domestically but abroad. And in the way that we do that is that we ensure that we have allies that are doing those things, not necessarily the way that we want them to, although it's perceived that way sometimes, but doing it in a way that has a collective interest. And we can do that. We can do that. In the case of Ukraine, there is a national interest there, obviously, both from a resources perspective and mineral perspective, as well as a national security perspective. The Russians did invade and impeded another sovereignty. We can't allow that to happen without any type of retribution. And they have to know that America's willpower and resolve is going to be there to be able to stop that if necessary. But there's on the other side, there's an accountability component. If you're giving out hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars to the Ukrainians, as we have, and we're finding out that 100 billion of it is unaccountable, where did the money go? I can get into and discuss the inspector generals and what they do and how they ensure the accountability of that money that's being sent over there to any country for that matter. But in that case, if there's no accountabilities, we got a problem. And like I keep saying, that's my praised word, is accountability. And if we're going to spend money, and it's for the national interest and national strategic interest, that we need to be able to make sure that we have mechanisms in place to be able to ensure the accountability of those interests.
I agree. I mean, I think Doge would probably have a good idea of where the money's going, and they'll find out. It's like we were giving, correct me if I'm wrong with the country, but Iraq, we were funding $30 million for an Iraqi Sesame Street, which was, when I read that, I thought I read something wrong. But $30 million for an Iraqi Sesame Street, and we were supporting, I forgot the name of the country, but about $1 million or $2 million for condoms for a country, and supporting atheism in another country. Everything totaled up to about $60 million or something astronomical like that, which is flabbergastic.
Well, it's common sense. I mean, the American people realize and recognize that it's a waste of money, and who's getting the benefits from it? This is the thing, is we always used to say in the government when we were investigating things like this, follow the money, and eventually you'll find out who's benefiting from that, who were getting kickbacks. Not to say that everybody was getting kickbacks in a lot of these different ventures and payments, but clearly there's no common sense there. I mean, when you look at it and you smile, you roll your eyes, and you see people saying, there's no way we could be spending that kind of money on these kinds of initiatives. And that's just a flagrant misuse and mischaracterization of government funds, and people should be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law in cases to where they knew that they were misappropriating money or misusing the government's money or the people's money.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, when I read it, I honestly started kind of laughing a little. But at the same time, I was disappointed, like, wait, these are taxpayer dollars. And they're going to an Iraqi Sesame Street, which was insane for the most part. I mean, the United States.
Well, come on, don't knock Sesame Street. I grew up on Sesame Street, but
yeah, it's like.
but at the same time, I see your point, and it's realistic as it relates to why do we need to be paying for that, especially in countries that have their own financial wherewithal to be able to go ahead and pay for that themselves. So what's the real intent? That's the question you have to ask. Who's benefiting from it?
I mean, unless they're teaching kids about Americanism and why it's important to have rights and liberty and democracy, then maybe, hey, this is a good idea. But as far as I've heard about it, it's just Sesame Street, which is, okay, that's a waste of taxpayer dollars.
It is.
What are your views on healthcare reform, and how would you plan to ensure affordable healthcare for Americans?
Topic area very important to me. I did my dissertation on that particular topic area as far as the claims, the adverse impact to different communities that were not receiving the best type of health care possible. And a lot of times it was considered that if you had good insurance, that you were going to be able to get better quality health care. But there are ways to be able to go ahead and effectively deal with that. And Medicare, Medicaid, Medicaid expansion. There's been a lot of issues and a lot of discussion on that. And that's American taxpayer dollars. And we have a humanitarian consideration and mindset when we go into looking at providing health care for Americans, especially in disadvantaged areas, very, very much so. But at the same time, you've got to recognize that with this influx of millions of people coming across, undocumented workers coming across, that is a major drain on our healthcare industry. And we see hospitals being forced under current law to have to take care of people. You cannot turn away somebody that comes into an emergency room. You have to take care of everybody. But that being said, we have to make better rules and regulations based upon what is in the best interest of Americans first, and recognize that if people are going to receive these benefits, we also have to have a mechanism that enables them to work and have the ability to work. So we want people to be able to go ahead and contribute to those systems as well, those healthcare systems, by being able to go ahead and pay for it too. And people fall on hard times. We understand that and recognize that. And but we also should have other mechanisms that enable them to get back into the workforce. If they're medically precluded, like VA disability, we need to improve on the VA disability programs that are out there right now. That's a big area. Is that we're taking funding away and removing capabilities and doctors and providers, the number that are out there to help people in the VA. The quality of care for people that have spent their lifetimes, and in some cases given the ultimate sacrifice. We need to be able to do a better job of being able to help our veteran populations, and specifically in this district.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard a lot of complaints about the VA, that they take forever to get back to you, or it's not the best service. And it really hurts me, because I know a lot of veterans. I know you're a veteran, so I could imagine how it feels for you that, like you said, they give the ultimate sacrifice. They lose limbs, they lose body, anything, and just for them just to have to be on hold for so long after what they've been through. And it's really devastating. It's really devastating for me to know that the people who do the ultimate sacrifice, who are willing to do stuff that a lot of people are not willing to do, have to wait longer to get the right health care they need. And it's not right. It's not right. They should just get as soon as possible after all they've been through.
How many stories have you heard, and I've seen this myself, to where people go into a hospital and they're put on a gurney and they're sitting in a hallway because of the simple fact that there's insufficient resources, doctors, nurses, medical personnel to be able to go ahead and provide some kind of immediate attention. That's even in the emergency rooms. But just to be able to sit back and wait for specialty care or some kind of even primary care for 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, if you've got a major issue that's brewing inside your body, cancer or any other type of anomaly or ailment, and you've waited 6 to 8 weeks to be able to go ahead and have somebody take a look at you, I mean, you're just going to deteriorate in that time frame. So we've got to do a much, much better job at funding and supporting our medical industry to make sure, and then holding them accountable also as well. But at the same time, making sure that they have the resources necessary to be able to provide the best medical care to our public.
It definitely, I mean, it's very unfortunate. I feel like doctors are underappreciated for the most part after all they go through, all the stress, all the paperwork, all the clients, all the people they have to see. It's very stressful, and I think our hospitals and just regular like healthcare places, they need more doctors in their buildings because they usually have 1 or 2 or 3 doctors. They need more, and for the people they see, about 20 of them and waiting in an office, just to go get checked, I have to wait about like 3 hours.
Well, that's why I did my dissertation on Medicare, and as far as on the claims process. Do you realize that out of the number of denials that occur, anywhere from about 23% to almost 60%, depending on which carrier we're talking about, out of the denied claims that occur against beneficiaries out there needing to receive medical assistance and medical help, that only 1% of that population ever appeal that denial decision to get that paid claim. That being said, when it does go up through the and it's costly to go through the administrative appeal process, that when it gets to the appellate judge level, the administrative law judges, that anywhere between 40 to 75% are overturned. Those denials are overturned, meaning that in the 3 to 5 years it took them to appeal that entire claim, and we're talking some companies anywhere of like $500,000 to $1 million, and that's their livelihood many times. That's why a lot of clinics close doors to underserved communities many times, because they're not getting paid by Medicare for the services and the medical care that they're rendering to their beneficiaries. That means that 25% or up to 75% of those claims that are overturned by the administrative law judge should have been paid. And that means that how many people are impacted by that as a result of that? And I can throw numbers out, but ultimately, we've got to improve upon our Medicare programs, our Medicaid Advantage programs, or Medicare Advantage programs, as well as the different programs that we have out there, the expansion programs, because we just can't do it all. But we got to do what we do provide in the way of medical care. We've got to do it in the right ways for the right reasons.
I agree. And as a veteran yourself, what are your main goals to help the veteran population here in Ventura County and the whole United States?
First and foremost, I want to see a great transition program. I've seen a lot of different initiatives to be able to go ahead and allow veterans to effectively transition from military service, and some of them have some traumatic issues that they have to contend with and mental health issues, and it doesn't go far enough. So we need to improve upon that transitional period of time, leaving the military service, enabling them to be functional citizens and have an opportunity for job growth. There's NGOs out there, non-government offices and 501c3s and 4s that support veterans, like Tunnel to Towers and Warriors and others. But the government needs to step in and do a lot more too, as far as in medical service, like I said, for the VA, and to make sure that it's timely, it's effective, and that the veteran population is educated. And there's the key. Educated on those services. You ever pick up a phone and then you're sitting on there for 2, 3, 4 hours waiting for somebody to get on the line to only tell you that you're in the wrong department?
Yes.
So, that's frustrating. So, and it's frustrating for me too when I had to deal with it. So we got to improve upon all of those processes, and that's what I would do for the veteran population.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, we need better resources for them. It's very important for them. We talked briefly about it with the VA, where they do the ultimate sacrifice and they do everything they can And with PTSD, a lot of them get PTSD. Some of them might even develop schizophrenia. I've heard cases where they just go insane and just lose their mind. We have a lot of homeless veterans here. Speaking of homeless, what are the key issues for you about the homeless population here in Ventura County?
Well, first, I think there are a lot of people. I went out and visited One Stop and a lot of our organizations that are out here that are philanthropic in nature to be able to help the homeless. Find out. I've talked to the homeless people. I've gone all the way up to near Ojai, all the way down to some of the areas that they're populated down on Pleasant Valley Road in our area here, to talk to these people and find out who they are, what their backgrounds are, what their aspirations are. Because a lot of these people want to get back into the workforce, don't know how, don't have the ability. They have children. What do you do with the children? Where do you house them? Do we have adequate housing? Some places allow homeless people to come in, but if you have children, they don't allow the children into those facilities. So there's a lot of issues that need to be ironed out, and I know that Oxnard and Camarillo do a great job as much as they can with the limited resources that they have available to them to be able to effectively deal with that. I've gone to the hospital and gone over there to talk with some of the folks that have drug problems. Giving them Narcan, once they're addicted to the drug, is not going to help them get off the drug. So there's a lot of things that are quick fixes, but they don't help address the issue at large. And I think we need to do that as far as housing for homeless people. So there's a lot of different things that we can be doing to take a look at in the aggregate. As far as I've gone to a place called the Samaritan Center up in Simi Valley and talked to the executive director up there about what they're doing, how they're doing. And there's similarities, but they're limited by the amount of resources that they have to be able to help these people. And it's an education process and it's a transitional process. But the United States government can do more to fund these folks as long as you have a definitive plan to be able to get them back into the network and being a productive citizen in their respective communities. Get them off the drugs. Don't perpetuate it by giving them Narcan in a way to be able to just counteract it, but putting them back into the workforce, giving them the training, going back to vocational skill sets versus academic skill sets. As far as, the plumbers are just important. In fact, I think I've just paid somebody $75 an hour, and that's effective. It's a good vocation. Not everybody wants to go to school or an academic school. And as we're seeing in academia right now with the Department of Education, we've had hundreds of millions of dollars going out there with lack of accountabilities there too. So DOJ is going to be able to go ahead and make sure that there's accountabilities there. But getting back to homelessness, there's a lot that can be done that we need to do to be able to make sure that we're getting the folks that want to get back into the fabric of this of the community, enable them the ability to be able to do so.
Yeah, I know homelessness is a really big issue here, not just in the county, but in the state, and it affects a lot of people. Some of them really do want to get back into the workforce, and it sucks for them because they try everything, but everything's holding them back.
Yes, the system enables it sometimes, and we need to be able to take a look at that. Camarillo, the police department, and Oxnard are really doing a great job, and many times the benchmark for being able to go ahead and effectively effectuate positive change in that area.
All right, so we've got to our last question, and what would you like to say as a closing statement to the voters?
And I want to say thank you for this opportunity again. Ultimately, I have the experience, the knowledge, and the passion and belief that we can always do better in every thing that we do as a congressional leader and as a managerial leader. And being able to go ahead and take that knowledge, that experience, that capability and competency and apply it to a myriad of different areas that touch everyday American lives, and specifically those in District 26, we are in the best position. I am in the best position. I am the best candidate to be able to ensure that the interests of the people in this district are taken care of first and foremost as a part of the America First agenda. And I want to say thank you very much. If you've got any questions, it's www.votemichaelkoslow.com. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much for this opportunity again.
Thank you, Mike.